29th for our field trip. Oh, thanks, Tim. I almost forgot to mention. I did forget to mention, don't forget to record. Our field trip is May 29th, which is a Sunday. And if you're there, I would love it if you can all come. I might not know all the plants. And Julia is co-leading it with me, and she will probably, I don't know, Julia, you might know all the plants. So there'll be some knowledgeable people there, and I'll be somewhat knowledgeable and learning a lot and looking forward to meeting all of you. What is Calflora? We're a 501c3 nonprofit plant database. We provide information on wild California plants for conservation, education, and appreciation. The database contains over 10,000 native and introduced plant species, over 3.5 million plant location observations from dozens of data sources. We are, as Tim said before most of you got on, I like this verb, we're a collator, or we collate data from a lot of different sources. So those 3.5 million observations don't all come from Calflora observers, although some of them do. 30,000 relationships between old and new plant names. As you know, plant names change, and we crosswalk the old and new ones. So whatever name you're using, you can find it in the database. Even if you went to grad school a long time ago, you can still use those old names and it'll bring you to the species you're looking for. Over 300,000 plant photos, and about 80,000 unique e-visitors each month. And some of you Audubon folks will bump that number up even more. And about 4,000 data contributors, and some of you are already counted in there, and some of you will hopefully join that number. The Calflora database contains all 10,000 native and introduced species, all wild plant species in the state. And we receive many data feeds from other sources, including CCH, which is Audubon folks, that's a specimen when you press it and then you submit it to herbarium and they digitize it. That stands for California Consortium of Herbaria. It's a very important source of information and data, especially from a long time ago. And some filtered iNaturalist data. We don't receive all iNaturalist data, nor do we want all iNaturalist data. iNaturalist, for you Audubon folks, you might use it, you might not, but it's kind of like eBird. It's like a citizen science way of logging what you see in the field. And there are errors, there's some really good stuff in iNaturalist, just like everywhere, and there's some errors. So we try and filter out some observations. I don't expect you to read this whole list or really digest the whole list, but this is just a snapshot of some of the bigger data sets in the Calflora database. Collate, aggregate, pull together. We do that for all of these different sources and more. This isn't even a complete list. And you'll notice that CNPS chapter checklists is on here under C, and that is a really valuable and important source of data. And I'm going to talk about that more later in my presentation. Thanks, Nancy. She just posted more information about the field trip, which I'm hoping all of you can join. As important as what we are is to talk about what we're not, because it's actually confusing. And I understand that with a name like Calflora, people think we're part of the UC system, but we're not. Cal Photos is part of the UC system and we serve their photos, but we're not part of Cal Photos and we're not part of the UC system. We're not part of CalIPSI, which is the Invasive Plant Council, where I used to work. We're not part of CNPS. Most of you probably know that because some of you are part of CNPS, which is its own nonprofit, California Native Plant Society. We're not part of CalScape, which is CNPS. And I added this just for tonight. We're not part of Audubon either. That's probably pretty clear. But we've been our own 501c3 nonprofit since 2000. Since we're a 501c3, where is our funding from? About a third is fee-for-service work. An organization will say, we need this to do our work better. We need to be able to export by shapefile or by JSON, GeoJSON, or to import by KML. We build that. That's about a third of our income or our budget. Donations from private people and from groups like CNPS. We don't have Audubon donations yet, but they're always welcome. And Weed Manager is our third of funding, and that is tracking and mapping invasive plant treatment, creating reports. It's very detailed population tracking of invasive plants in the database, and it's a whole set of software we built to do exactly that. There's one taxon report page for each wild plant species in California, and that's including parents and children. So that's subspecies and varieties. They each have their own taxon report page. I'm going to talk more about these taxon report pages. One of the things they do include is these alternate names. So the plant names change. Erythranthe used to be a mimulus. And whatever name, if you remember the mimulus guttatus, then you can look that up and you'll be brought to the Erythranthe. We also serve nursery and seed sources. So if you want to plant this verbena, for instance, it's only for native plants do we serve where you could buy it, although some places do sell non-native plants, invasive plants. Then you can look and say, oh, here's the county that I'm in. Let's see if it, is it sold close by, and find it there. Okay, your CNPS chapter is amazing. And you have many photos and observations in Calflora from chapter members. I can't get to all of you and thank all of you for your amazing contributions to Calflora, but here are just a few. Haley Ross, this beach morning glory. I just took a few snapshots out of the taxon report pages and put them on a page just so you could ooh and ah at them. And those little blue dots up the coast represent the distribution for the species. We have the scientific name, the common name, and then what we call reference photos. And these two reference photos, one of them comes from your chapter member, Haley, and she is an incredible photographer and botanist and has a lot of great observations in the database that are useful to everybody. Her reference photos are great, her observations are helpful, and everybody can see them and use them and benefit from them. Mary Sue Ittner, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right, Mary Sue, and Katie Pye also have observations and photos in here. Here, for example, is coastal sand verbena and two of their photos, and then the distribution again up the coast for this species. Looks like a little bit also on the Channel Islands. And here we have Michaela, and this is a pine mistletoe. One of her photos was chosen as a reference photo. Oh, and when I say was chosen, who does that choosing? If you'd like to choose which photos should be used as reference photos, those are the prime pictures shown on the taxon report pages, you can join that team. That's a volunteer thing, as much as little time you would like to put into it to choose the best photos for these pages. And it's kind of it's a project that's never really done. They're always like switching them around, switching the order, finding better photos. It's not static at all. And for this pine mistletoe, you notice it kind of bleeds or leaks into Nevada. For Calflora, it's based in California, but you can still see observations just on the outside, just outside the borders of the state. And you can even put observations in from anywhere in the world. They just won't be available to default Calflora users. They'll be available to you though. In your portfolio. Oh, and this is a parasite, it looks like. A dicot, a perennial herb parasite. And it's also called, so there's its old name. Oof. I don't know. Nancy could, someone else besides me could probably pronounce that. Here is a Harlequin Lotus that we'll hopefully see on our hike on the 29th. And it's a rare plant. That's why there's some little yellow squares behind some of the blue dots representing an observation that is seen in somewhere in the quad, so that it's been obscured. And I'm going to talk more about that. And there's a Jinx McCombs has a photo here, and Sue Pollock also, both chapter members. And I was looking at, I think I sent Nancy an email about this. There's this rogue observation in El Dorado County over here to the east. And I drilled down earlier, if this is a static PowerPoint right now, but if we were live on the Calflora website, we could click on this and see who said that it was there and when, and where, is it accurately ID'd? And this is a CCH or a specimen observation from 1976 by Stebbins, I believe. Nancy, did you want to say anything about that? Did you have a chance to look at that at all?
I didn't actually,
Okay.
but I would say that that is one of the one of the values of Calflora is being able to see where there are these outliers, and then that's, you know, that's a good target for further research. It could be that it was misidentified, or it could be a really weird, you know, disjunct or an undescribed species. I mean, there are many possibilities.
Mm-hmm. And some people who are looking at this will say, what? Calflora is wrong. And then we get the angry email, how could you possibly think that Harlequin Lotus would grow in El Dorado County or whatever? And then we explain, well, we're serving information from other sources, and iNaturalist, this happens too with iNaturalist. So pardon us. And we do have the power to suppress, like administrators at Calflora can suppress observations if they're just blatantly wrong. Like if we're positive, if Nancy had said, you know, this can't be right, it could never have possibly grown there even in 1976, and I'm positive, then I would accept her expertise, press this one so it didn't show up on the map. Given what she just said, we'll leave it and, you know, let the people complain.
Or at some point, someone goes back to the herbarium and figures out what it is and tells them.
Yes, that would be
clean up the data.
That would be the best solution. And in terms of commenting, if you do see something that you think is erratic or wrong, or even potentially wrong, you just want to question it, you can comment on it. For this, you would, if you clicked comment, it would take you to CCH and they receive your comments. And then they're actually really good about responding to comments. CCH2 is for Calflora observations, the observer has a week to respond to your comment, after which their observation goes into a questionable category. The seaside heliotrope, here's a picture by Charlie Russell. I love that photo. And you might wonder about this little rogue point out here. It supposedly grows on the Farallones. So there you go. Zoya and Asa. Oh, Asa, you're on the call. And Zoya might be too, I'm not sure. Some lovely photos of Western Labrador tea, and then the distribution, blue dots. Oh, and here's another one by Haley and one by Allison Gardner, also coast clover, nice photos. And Haley's includes a ruler. Some people choose to include hands. Some people really don't like hands. I like hands for scale, but some people think that they don't belong in the plant photo. So it's kind of up to the volunteers that we have choosing these photos, if they'll only include, you know, photos with rulers or some with hands, or however they want to make those decisions. We leave that up to them and to you if you'd like to be one of those volunteers. Mary Sue, another one, pearly everlasting, beautiful. Even a bad, and I have that in quotes, photo can help you document. And you don't need a photo at all to make a Calflora observation. You can put an observation into the database with just saying, here's the species, here's where I saw it, and here's the date. This is a photo, Robin's photo, and I wouldn't even, this isn't a bad photo. It's just, you know, maybe not one that would be chosen as a reference photo. It kind of documents, yeah, this is probably the Hesperivix that she saw, and it's fine. You know, it is what it is. It's her photo attached to this. And even if it's blurry, it's okay. Or leave it out, whatever's up to you. Some of the really top-notch photographers will not have a bad photo associated with their observation, and they would rather perish first. And that's fine too. But if you do have, you know, a lot of my photos are kind of blurry, and it's fine. All right, how to ID plants you see. This is the burning question. Tim was mentioning, asking about this. And there's a lot of different ways to do this using Calflora and other tools. And I'm just going to go over a few. Like I said, I'm just skimming the surface. These are just a few. I'm going to switch to Chrome. Do you see Haley's photo now in Chrome? Oh, I stopped screen sharing. Oh, better start that again. Now you see Haley's photo again. Is that true? Julia's nodding. Okay. Let's go to the Calflora homepage. And Andrew, what was your question at the beginning that you asked? Andrew. All right, well, here's what I think he asked. He said, how do I know what I'm going to find at a certain location? How can I ID the plants that I've seen at a certain location? From
Sorry.
Andrew?
I Zoom wasn't cooperating. No, I have a question about the list, but IDing stuff is important too.
Oh, the plant list.
Right.
Okay, like how to export a plant list.
Well, I'd like to get a geographic list of wildflowers basically native to Fort Bragg and the related area.
Oh, great. Okay, that helps
Thank
too.
you.
So if you're wanting to ID some what you think are native flowers in the Fort Bragg area, how might you do that? All right, let's start there. From the calflora.org homepage, there's all these links on the left, and one of them goes to what grows here. Now let's look up Fort Bragg. And as you start to type, the list gets shorter. Let's just go to the town of Fort Bragg. Zoom in a little bit. Is this broader or less, or is this about the area you're interested in, Andrew?
Yes, that's right. I'm basically kind of like to the west of Fort Bragg High School, kind of
Okay.
between the dog park and Fort Bragg High School.
Oh, well, then we could narrow it down even more. And we could draw just for demonstration's sake. Let's draw a polygon around this area. Start drawing. Excuse me. I have to say you're starting to draw so the system knows. All right, so Andrew wants to know, stop drawing. What native plants, I just went over here and I'm opening up these little blue arrows, open up the next criteria section. So open that up. Native, blooming.
Oh, very nice.
Do you want blooming now or blooming in May, or do you not necessarily?
Darn it, I wasn't muted. Yeah, it's a drop-down menu. I'm not fussy, you know, because this is kind of a long-term thing.
All right, so let's see what's blooming in May that's also native in our polygon. We could narrow it down farther if we wanted to, but let's just start there. Huh, nothing. All right. Well, that could also be because let's
You can see the problem I had. No, I
yeah.
have no idea.
Well, we don't have enough information then for what's growing in the Fort Bragg area. Let's try it in the map area.
What is Serpentine Affinity?
Oh, if you're interested in species that like to grow in serpentine, which is a limited list of species.
What is serpentine context of plants?
It's a soil, well, it's a rock that breaks down into a soil, and it's toxic to most plants.
Yeah.
And,
okay, I didn't know that, but it's just got a kind of soil.
Yeah. So here's a list of 381 plants that bloom in any month and that are native and that grow in this entire map area, because I changed, my polygon was too small, so I changed it to map area. I'm going to use this blue arrow to fold up let's just scroll through and look at some of these. These 3 photos that we see are the reference photos that our volunteers have chosen to best represent these species. We have the bloom wheel showing when the species is in bloom. And so if, back to the question, how do you ID plants in the field? If you knew that you were in the Fort Bragg area and you saw something that was blooming, let's say blooming in May, maybe now we can do that. It won't be too limiting. 240 bloom in May in the Fort Bragg area. And what if you knew that it was, or you suspect, if you knew the family, you could write the family here. Let's say if you knew the genus, Acmispin, there any 4 Acmispin blooming that bloom in May that grow in the Fort Bragg area. So if you could limit it down to some sort of lotus, then you could look at these photos and then also see, well, where exactly do they grow? So let's open up the map in this area. There's one record of this one. Let's display it as purple. Display right there. And then 2 of the large leaf lotus. Display. Oh, this one's way over here. Huh. And if you want to know more about that, like who saw that way over here? Who was that? What did they know? Okay, this is from 1937. So it might, the location quality is low, so it might not really be right there. The location description is 3 miles east of Fort Bragg, North Coast Ranges, Pygmy Forest. And Ethel Crum saw it. So anyway, that's how you see more information about that observation. That's one way to ID plants using Calflora. Another way, let's leave that open for now, that what grows here tab. I'm going to leave that open and go to a different tab. And if you knew what county you were in, so we knew we were in Mendocino, we knew that we were over, oh gosh, let's say 1,600 meters. And are we going to find anything affinity to serpentine soil above 1,600 meters in Mendocino? What do you guys think? Let's check. If you were on Serpentine and you saw something in Mendocino above 1,600, this is another way to identify. Whoa, 187 matches. That's way more than I expected. All right, so if you knew those things about your location, then you could scroll through here and see, well, these are what might grow in Serpentine. And then a third way, this is my best way, is to have some photos of where you were. Oh, I have to sign in. You don't always have to sign in to use Calflora, but if you want things to be customized to you, like if I want to be able to see my observations in Calflora, then okay, here's an example. So let's go to this Calicortus. Now, I was with someone in the field and we had to key it out, but we didn't know what Calicortus it was. So what I might do is say, okay, find nearby records of Calicortus, because what is it most likely based on what's close by, which, as anybody would tell you, that's not really a surefire way of knowing what you saw. It could be a different Calicortus, but let's just see. Oh my goodness, there's a cluster of this is also by me. So it's not really a cluster of these. Let's pretend like this wasn't actually me. Somebody else saw it and they said it was Venistus. All right, well, let's look at, you could go to the record detail, see what that species looks like, look at the family, Liliaceae. How closely does that match what it is that you saw? And the photos are still loading, spinning, but they're going to pop up here in a minute. And so if you can get it down, we're having our fundraiser, if you can get it down to the genus and look by what's close by that is that genus, that's another way. Okay, so those are 3 ways. There's a million more ways to identify what you see in the field, but I'm going to stop there for now. From current slide. Jim, yes, we do deal with native grasses, and I can talk about that. Do you guys see my PowerPoint again now? Julia, will you nod or shake your head? Obscuring plant locations. Do you guys see my PowerPoint obscuring plant locations now?
No.
No. Okay, why not? Let's see. Oh, your screen sharing is paused. That's why. Start again. Share. Okay, now obscuring rare plant populations. Yes, no?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Now it's showing your PowerPoint.
As I mentioned, the Calflora database collates, aggregates, pulls together observations from lots of different data sources, and they're displayed in different ways, depending on where they're coming from, who's displaying it, and what their preferences are. For example, the purple dot is just a simple point. The blue square is obscured point. So this blue square over here means somewhere in this quarter quadrangle, this plant was seen. Pink is a line or polygon, so a big area of the species. Or maybe along a river would be a line. A green is a survey or a checklist, and a lot of CNPS chapters, including yours, have entered checklists and surveys into Calflora, and that's really useful. It's a list of plants seen in a specific area. Yellow comes from CNDDB. That's a rare plant database run by the state, and that's somewhere. So this yellow square means that species was seen somewhere in this quadrangle. Blue dots like this are specimens coming from CCH2, the California Consortium of Herbaria. Potential habitat is orange, 0 plants. So if someone said I looked for it and I didn't find it, which is really valuable, negative data or absence data, that would show up as gray. And then questionable, if you opted to see questionable ones, those are the ones that have been commented on and the user didn't defend the ID, then they fall into the questionable category. And obscured observations. So here's a sedum by Justin, and sedums are unfortunately sometimes poached and sold for money. And that's why it's probably a good idea to obscure the location so that nefarious uses of the locations, so to prevent that. And that's what Justin did. So somewhere between Twain and Belden, Justin saw this sedum, and it's somewhere in this square that you can't see all of because the pop-up with the details is blocking it, but you don't know exactly where. And at this point, the way it works in Calflora is the user decides whether to obscure a point or not. We suggest for specific rare plants that the user obscure them, but we don't force it. So that's where we are now. There's a lot of discussion within the herbarium and CCH and rare plant botanists about what the best system is. And so for now, that's what we do. And we're listening to these discussions and seeing where they're going to head. Oh, and if you, as a good player, want to know where exactly Justin saw it because you want to go back and try and find it, you can either ask him, you can comment on his record and he'll get an email automatically saying, hey, I'd love to know the exact location if you're willing to share it. Justin could also start a Calflora group of his trusted friends and share the, within a Calflora group is a great way to share private information like this. And that's another way to let other people know what the exact location is, if you want to do that. Okay, the planting guide is from the homepage, another link on the left. And that's a guide to help you figure out what to plant in your garden or in a restoration site. How does it work? You put in a location and the planting guide gives you a list of the native plants that would grow well there. To find matching plants, the Calflora algorithm matches plant tolerances with location values of the following factors. It's a long list of factors here. Elevation, climate factors, soil factors, ecoregion, and county. For all the plant observations that we have in the database, they all have locations associated with them. And so to figure out what would grow well at a certain location, we base it on an algorithm that incorporates all of these factors. Okay, now I'm going to screen share that. It's funny, every time I switch, it turns off my screen sharing. All right, so now do you see the Calflora page again? Yes, no, Julie, I can see if you nod
Yes.
or not. Yes, okay, great. The planting guide. Can someone either type into chat or say out loud a street name or an address or a place that you're interested in planting native plants? Ocean View Drive. Margaret, is that about the right place? There's some disclaimers. These disclaimers are saying that climate and soil values are not going to be perfect for this location because it's so close to the. Oh, is it the wrong city? Maybe
It
that's
looks like
why.
it's the wrong county,
Oh,
possibly.
Fort Bragg. Is that better?
Well, if it's someone in San Francisco, is that?
No, that's the right location. That's Ocean View Drive on Todd's Point in Fort Bragg.
Oh, all right. I take
Okay.
it back.
All right, so here we are at Ocean View Drive. Near Todd's Point, here, Todd's Point, okay. And if you have a garden here, a restoration site, or maybe Mendocino College Coast Center has a big garden here, they want to plant. Let's see, is it low water at this location? Or should I uncheck that? Yes, low water. Okay, so it's not riparian. Is it shady? No, not shady, so I won't check that. And let's just, these three constraints are automatically checked. Check for wild plants in the same ecoregion using soil factors and omitting plants at the edge of their tolerances. I did search and I came up with 30 plants. Let's not group them by life form. Let's fold up this map and let's just have a look at them. So these 30 plants are suggested for that location. Oh, I love this Brodea.
So is it easy to get seeds for these things?
Good question. Who just asked that? Andrew. Okay,
that's
which
me.
one? Let's look up.
Just all of those. I mean,
okay.
it looks like you have your butterfly icon there for
Right.
butterfly plants that butterflies like.
Yep, exactly. Or beneficial. Yeah, not always just butterflies, moths, bees, stuff like that. Pollinator in general. Let's look and see where we could get the scene of this. Click on the name and we can go to the taxon report page, which is this, showing the distribution across the state, plant range, the observations, plant characteristics, the bloom wheel, these photos that we've seen, family, genus, subspecies, and varieties. We can go to CNPLX, which will answer Andrew's question, which stands for California Native Plant Link Exchange. It is a mouthful. And let's see, where's near Mendocino? Here we go, Mendocino. Anderson Valley Nursery supposedly has this one. I would check before going there, unless you're going there anyways. And if you happen to be in San Francisco, you go to Bay Natives and Santa Clara. Oh, the CNPS nursery there has it. And here are all the places that sell it. And if you wanted to share this list with your partner, spouse, colleague, under tools, you can send it as an email. You can download it as a spreadsheet. And you can also go to what grows here. You can watch a video about how does this planting guide work, and then go to help if you have more questions and scroll through this list. Let's try one more address with some different constraints. Ocean Meadows Circle. Jim asked about Ocean Meadows Circle. Is that also Fort Bragg? Maybe not. Oh, put on the map and see. Is that where Ocean Meadows Circle is? Where this little crosshairs is?
Yes.
Okay. So let's fold up the map. And let's tighten our constraints. We got 46 plants, which is a lot. So let's say, is it low water, Jim?
What does low water mean?
Yeah,
Like,
does the low water mean that the site has low water, or you want to choose a plant that requires less water?
the plant that requires less water and that you're not going to be watering it. You're not going to be watering that plant. So would you like plants that you, what'd you say?
So good for xeriscaping?
Yeah. And I'm going to say it's not riparian because here we are on the coast, don't see any rivers. And I'm going to say it's not shady unless Jim wants to say it is shady. And then let's tighten up these constraints. We're in the same county within 10 miles and easy to establish in addition to the other 3 factors that were already selected. Search again. We went from 46 to 22. All right, that's a little more manageable. Let's look up and see what they are. Ooh, that is nice. That thrift sea pink armeria. Wow. So this is what the system recommends based on the algorithm. Now, if you looked at this, you said, what? No way would this Phacelia grow there. That's impossible. Why would it suggest that? Click on the scientific name and go to location suitability, and that explains here are the plant tolerances in this column. And here are the location values in this column. Now somebody is making some noise, so I'm just going to mute a few people. Do you guys hear that noise? Elevation, the plant tolerates 0 to 1300 meters and the location value is 11 meters. Precipitation, plant can tolerate 24 to 63 inches and the location value is 39. Wet season, temperature range, December low, soil, max salinity, minimum depth, textures, maximum calcium carbonate, etc. And so if you're wondering why it ended up there, this is why. And if you beg to differ, like if you know this Phacelia really well, you know, we'd be interested all the time if you have questions or feedback or, you know, need help. You can always click on help. There's always a help on every page. And then what you can also do is copy this link about this Phacelia, copy and paste that into an email to us, contact Calflora. Here's our email address. And just make sure that you include that link. You say, this Phacelia, no way, you know, it says it should grow here, but you know, there's something wrong and your algorithm's not working. And, you know, say something nice also, if you don't mind, but just tell us what it is that you think isn't quite right and why. Now, where was I? Oh, I went back over here. Okay, so that is the plant location suitability explaining why this Phacelia showed up on our list. And I pointed out under tools, you can send an email, download spreadsheet, and look at it, what grows here. And you can put in an address. You can also just choose a location on the map. Like if you said, well, let's go a little bit east of there and try again and see if our list is different or the same. You can just, you know, click a new location and create a new list. Any questions about this so far? It's very extensive, says Andrew. It is extensive. All right. And speaking of extensive, I can't go on much longer. Oh, is there a question?
Yeah. Can you turn off the picture so you just generate like a list of text?
Yeah, good question. I meant to say that, and I'm glad you asked. Let's see. How do you do that?
Because like I'm thinking, you know, I want to go into a mail order and here I'll order all these species and stuff and, you know, try to figure out the ones I want. And when I print it off, all of that graphic information is going to be tough on my printer.
Yeah. So I just generated an Excel spreadsheet with my list.
How
so
long
that
did
would
it
be
take
better.
you to get familiar with the interface, or did you draft it yourself?
For this, for what?
Well, you've got the reflexes for the interface on this
Oh.
Calflora website, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
did not come easily
Right.
or instantaneously.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I've been the executive director of Calflora for 6 years now. And before that, I was the GIS project manager for a few years. So I've had a long time to just kind of, I'm not the one building the stuff. Our developers are building the stuff, but
They've
I'm
done
the
a great job. I'm
thank
really
you.
impressed.
Good, thank you. So, I mean, how do you, I always know there's always a tools and there's always a help. And then I'm the one who puts these videos together, like the video tutorials. They're also all on our YouTube channel. So I don't know how long it took me to get used to this, but if there's something you're wondering about, look for tools and look for help. Help, and send us emails. That's another good way. And these little blue arrows, once you get used to them, they're quite handy, but you know, you can fold out the map, which makes it easier to see what's on the page as you scroll down like that. Okay, so now let's go back to here.
There must be a way to drop photos off.
To drop photos off. Must be a way to drop photos off. What do you mean? Not sure what you
Well,
mean.
I think she was going to generate,
Only.
a spreadsheet for you.
Oh, you guys
Okay.
couldn't see the spreadsheet because of my screen share, I think, right? So you didn't, I saw it, but
Right.
you guys didn't see it. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought everybody was looking at the at the spreadsheet I just downloaded. Okay, so I went to here and I went to download the spreadsheet and then I could see the spreadsheet, but you couldn't. So let me change that. Let's see how I can do that.
But it's easy then.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom of the screen.
And now you don't see that?
No, it just went to your video feed and left. There you go.
Okay, so now this is the spreadsheet that it downloaded.
The guys who did the programming here just did a fantastic job.
Yeah, and they are men. I was hoping there'd be some, we've tried to hire women, but so far it's just guys and me. Well, we have women doing other stuff, but the developers are men. All right, so that's, let me switch back. Now, what is that noise? There's such a loud noise coming from somebody. I think that stopped it. All right, I'm gonna switch back to my PowerPoint again. Oh, and this is the part where I talk about your surveys, which are fabulous. All right, surveys and checklists. Could you nod your head, Julia, if you see surveys and checklists in red? Yes, okay, great. Here's the Dorothy King Young CNPS region, that westernmost kind of greenish turquoise-ish color. And all those green squares are places within your region where there's a survey. And each survey has 1 to an infinite number of plants on it. Here are just a few of the selected names of some of the surveys. I know some of these places, but I certainly, you guys know these places much better than I do. Jug Handle, Stornetta, Sea Ranch, Fort Bragg, McCarricker, I think is how you pronounce that, Navarro Valley, Mendocino Headland State Park, etc. So someone went, and we can look at this more closely online. Someone went to Mendocino Headland State Park. They saw a bunch of plants and they created a list in Excel or, you know, by hand and digitized it later and added that to a survey for that area. So every time you're using what grows here, the planting guide, observation search, all the Calflora algorithms pull from this information. So when we were using the planting guide and we were saying we want to know what plants grow within 10 miles and within the county and that are easy to establish, without these surveys, the results would have been different. Sometimes I unpublish a survey of my own and then look at what grows here and then publish it just to see how much I'm actually adding to the database that wasn't there before in terms of species. You know, you're always adding information, but in terms of species. And it's fun to say, oh, I don't, you know, this was already pretty well documented, or, oh, 43 species that weren't here before. Am I right? Or did I do something wrong? So that's in general why surveys are useful. And you guys as a chapter have a lot of knowledge that no one else outside your region has, that and some CNPS chapters have really run with this, and I'm hoping that your chapter will too. And Audubon, you plant interested folks are also welcome to do this. If someone wants to spearhead this effort, I would be happy to support helping get the surveys into Calflora. It's basically you paste a plant list in, the misspellings are spat back at you, you spell them correctly, and then you define an area where they were seen and you call it something. So that's really valuable. And iNaturalist. So that's my last thing, and then I'll take some of your questions. Let's see. Stop share, share again, share. Okay, so you see calflora.org. Julia's nodding. Okay, great. Let's go to look at those surveys. Survey checklist search. My preferences, I'm signed in as me here, and I live in Oakland and work in Berkeley. It's where the Calflora office is. So that's why all my maps are focused on the East Bay. You guys probably wouldn't want that, so you would set your preference to be where you're located. So let's open up region. Over every map is something called layers. And within layers, in this case, let's look at CNPS chapter. Here it's labeled which CNPS chapter that is. In the selected CNPS chapter, where are the surveys? So fold up layers, here they are. That's what I just showed you in my PowerPoint. Fold up the map and we can see them. Oh, and so many of these did come from you. Look at that. Let's sort alphabetized by source. Let's see, California State Parks has some. Here we have just some CNPS. Oh, it looks like the state level with Jennifer. And then here are some specifically from your chapter. So Hearn Gulch, Navarro Point, Stornetta, Manchester State Park. And then here's some other sources. Dean Taylor has some surveys in here. DFW veg mapping. Okay, so anyway, that's just to show you the surveys that are in here already. And I'm interested in helping your chapter work on that to get even more in there. There's some very well documented areas here, and then some not so well documented areas in other places. And just because something is documented already, like let's look at this one. Teresa's Pygmy Forest, we can look at her illustrated plant list. So this is what she saw: Little River, Van Dam State Park, Pygmy Forest, and Ecotone. 18 plants. A lot of manzanita, sedge. Ooh, coast lily. Nancy said we're probably not going to see that on the 29th. Anyway, so that's what she saw. And I'm going to stop there with surveys and jump into iNaturalist and then take your questions. Let's go back to the homepage. If you could type into the chat your iNaturalist username or handle. And then I can show you, if this is to show you how we do an automatic data pull from iNaturalist, but as I mentioned before, we don't want everything, nor do we get everything. So let's see what ASA has in iNaturalist that we do not have. So go to add observations. Oh, it's our photo contest right now. So if you have plant photos, you can add them here, multiple photo upload. iNaturalist, here sits handle, search. And it could be that ASA doesn't have his Creative Commons license set so that we're allowed to have his iNaturalist observations in here. I'm not sure. Certainly is thinking hard about it. Let's try Albion wood.
I've got a lot of them, so it might.
Oh,
be
that's
something
why it's
like-
thinking for so long. But yeah. It means you have a lot of them that aren't in Calflora, which, if you have a lot of them, then that will be true. Okay, so add observations. I'm going to have 2 tabs going at the same time.
One of the interesting things, you might cover this, but I'll go ahead and say it, is that it won't pull in plants that are obscured in iNaturalist. Well,
Mhm.
I guess it's it has a specificity. It's got to be within a certain amount of meters, and so if it is a rare plant, it's obscured and therefore it fails Calflora's test, so it won't get put in there. And then also I've got a lot of them that I know what the identification
whoops.
was, but somebody has not confirmed the identification, and therefore it's not research grade,
Mhm.
because I'm the only one looking at rare plants on iNaturalist.
Yeah. Asa there, I pasted into the chat a link. And if I can pull in, for instance, this Hosaki gracilis, but I would rather if you did it, this Limnanthes Douglasii. So to pull this into Calflora, you click on here and you just say add to Calflora. I'll do one to show you how, but if you could do the rest of them, that would be great. And then they'll go into your account and that'd be wonderful. Here, I'll add this trifolium too.
It'd be great if there was one button, but
Yeah, we don't want that
I've got
because
636 records.
yeah, no, a lot of people have asked for that, but then that just means people aren't looking at them before adding them to Calflora, and we're already trying to kind of filter out INAT stuff. And if you just said, boom, I want them all in there, boom, I want them all, then I mean, for your stuff that would make sense, but you can also query by, by scientific name. You can query by a lot of things, not just a handle, and we really don't want people to just be dumping in everything from INAT.
Sure.
So that's why we have it that way. And then Tim, you don't have your Creative Commons license set so that we can pull your stuff in, but if you go into iNaturalist and change that, then Calflora can have your plant observations. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and we have a few minutes for questions. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask or type it into the chat.
I had made a comment in the chat. This is Nancy, that we have kind of an observation shadow in our chapter area, especially for common things that no one's bothered to collect.
Oh, you
So,
mentioned that, right?
If you went back to your Labrador tea,
Right.
it looks like we don't have any, but it's everywhere. We know that, so it's just not, we just need to do more work to get things documented.
Okay, so this one, Nancy, this rhododendron.
Mhm.
Right, I'm just gonna say I didn't see it. You saw it. So is this okay if I say you saw it? Did you see it today, or what date do you want?
No. My point is, you could see it everywhere, all of spring.
Mhm. Right, but then we need people to enter it into the database, otherwise we won't know that it's there. You're right, and this isn't going to solve the problem. For this plant, for this species, we can add one location now, but every one location that you add or that somebody else adds will help solve the problem altogether. Right. So and you can also say I saw it in this huge, like and I'll take your name if you don't want your name on here, because I understand.
Well, it's just not something that I would
you would do.
I would do just, without being careful about it.
Right.
I would not enter that record without
so that's just but I would.
Maybe I misunderstood, but Nancy, I thought I understood you to say there's a shadow in the a shadow, meaning there's missing data because the common plants don't get recorded
exactly
very often, and so when you search the database, it looks like those plants are rare, but in fact they're common, and that's a pretty common problem with citizen science databases. We have the same problem in birding because people fixate on rare birds and make a point of reporting those, A lot of people use eBird that way to keep track of their rare sightings, and then they don't, hardly anybody counts starlings and puts them on every one of their eBird reports.
Right.
And so
Right.
it gives you a distorted image of abundance.
I even saw a CDFW official presentation where one of the CDFW people, to the point of, they were talking about wildlife diversity and wildlife corridors, and they were pointing out that the highways in Mendocino County were important wildlife corridors because of all of the wildlife that had been reported along them. And that's not what that data said. That data said that that's where people saw animals. There's not less species out in the middle of nowhere. There's less people reporting things out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a problem with interpreting data. I mean, that's a problem with the CDFW guys doing bad science. I mean, that's just bad science. If you can't look at a database and understand what you're actually seeing, and then you misinterpret it, that's
another example. Would be that if you look at how many rare plants grow around four-year colleges compared to in areas that don't have botany classes.
So Cynthia, look further south, go back down toward the Point Arena area. That big area there, only a couple of localities. And if you go into any of those wetter draws, you will find Leadum or the Labrador tea.
And this is, so I decided, Nancy, we won't be able to solve the problem, and it is a problem, and it is something for researchers and people using Calflora to know. But I went into the ad records for my naturalist, looked up this Western Labrador tea, and I'm just adding the ones to Calflora that weren't in Calflora already, which is quicker than us, making an observation or several ourselves. And so, yeah, you're right. It's just something to note, something that is a problem. And now we have, I don't know, 6 or 7 more observations from the area.
Yeah, it's not a criticism of Calflora.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's very typical for our area. Lots and lots of the common plants look like they're not here because they've not been recorded.
Right. And, whenever someone says something like that, it's like, okay, there's a problem, let's solve it. And maybe we could solve it for this species by putting, an hour's work into pulling in some observations, creating some of our own observations, etc. But we can't do it for all 10,000 species. So you're saying, yeah, okay, sorry. And Margaret Ryder asked, on the weed work you do, is that something you do to survey what weeds are there or to make a plan for eradication? If the latter, is that something you do only for parks, et cetera, or also for individuals? I just want to be really clear. I don't do this work on the ground. I'm in charge of the database, and there's a lot of people working really hard on the ground. But the Calflora staff are behind the scenes, building software, doing the fundraising, helping people understand how to use it, and sort of making it more user-friendly, creating those nice spreadsheets that I was finally able to show you with the screen share and stuff like that. So the Weed Manager is a system that allows agencies and organizations who are tracking weeds to, yes, make a plan for eradication if that's what they want to do, make a plan for control if that's what they want to do. They need to prioritize what they're doing based on, what weed it is. Is it close by? Does it make sense to eradicate? Does it make sense to control? And making educated decisions based on the data. And that's always, I don't know what you should do with goat grass. I'm not an expert at all, but I do know that to make an educated decision about anything, you need to have information about it. So that's what we're providing, is information that you can use, the software that you can use to collect the data, the information you need to make a wise decision. And to make a sustainable one, and to be able to prioritize your weeds, because you can't get rid of all of them all at the same time. Does that answer your question, Margaret? Okay. Any other questions before we. Oh, there's 7 new messages. Oh my goodness, I need to keep an eye on this chat. Oh, what a great resource. Well, thank you. Yes, I think so too. That's why I'm here. Facial recognition for plants. So can you just hold your phone up to a plant and it'll ID it for you? There is an app called Seek. iNaturalist, I'm pretty sure iNaturalist built that. It's part of iNaturalist, and it's, I think, 80% accurate to the genus level, and then for the species, kind of depends on the species. I like to use it and then vet what it says later. And you know, I'm often out with people with very wise and experienced botanists who know what's up, and they can help me, you know if the Seek app is doing a good job or not, or I don't even have to use it because they know what everything is anyway. But that's nice. Okay, any other questions? Let's see, 2 more messages. Do statistics, yes. And you can also create statistics within Weed Manager reports, showing populations changing over time to submit to your managers or whatever you need to do. Okay, so if you have any more questions you come up with after this presentation, take this URL or whatever you have a question about, this link, so we can go and see exactly what you're looking at. Go to the Calflora homepage, go to contact Calflora and send us. You can also call, always welcome to call us, email us. And if you email us, paste that link in here. We even have this note. Please do include your URL in your email. It will look something like this, because not everybody really understands copying and pasting, much less what a URL is. So, but it really helps us if you have a specific question to include the URL. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you all May 29th, either on the hike or at your wildflower show that's happening in Gualala that weekend. And thank you very much.
Cynthia, do people need to sign up in advance for the hike, or can they just show up?
Yes, Julia and I are leading a hike, and you do need to sign up in advance. And there's a link. Julia, do you have that link on hand that you could paste into the?
I don't know if we're maintaining it. We're hoping actually more people would come. Are you wanting it to be just 15 people? That
Oh,
seemed very small to me.
hi.
Yeah, if you limit it to just the people who were at this presentation, only a subset of those are going to show up. You're not going to have a lot of attendance, I think.
No, yeah, no, I like to say it's a prerequisite to come to this presentation to attend the hike, but I'm not going to throw anybody out of the hike who's not here. And so the link to sign up, I can paste in the chat here.
Yeah, that would be great.
Or, you know, let's see. Nancy, do you have that link?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay. I think you'll have it more quickly than I will. I have it somewhere.
And where does the hike start?
I put it in the chat. It's at the Point Arena City Hall entrance to the monument.
Right. Just happened. I just lost the.
Yeah, I could copy and paste that. And yeah, let's see if I can find Nancy's. Here it is. And the wildflower show information she put in here too. So I'll just copy what Nancy wrote and paste it again, and Nancy's going to get the link for the hike.
So, okay, so it's Saturday the 29th?
No, Sunday.
Sunday the 29th. Okay, yeah. Starts at 10, finishes up about 1. Okay, great. Thanks for putting that information in there. And yeah, we know that. Some of us at least know that spot, Point Arena City Hall. That's a great trail. We did a Audubon field trip there a couple of years ago, and it was really fun.
Yeah, and some of you, if you Audubon folks come, maybe we would see some cool birds too.
Yeah, when we did the field trip there, the one I remember that was the coolest bird I thought was red crossbill. There's a little pine forest there, and there were red crossbills bopping around in it. And they're a hard bird to find here on the coast.
Okay, so
I get them
Nancy,
from my feeder.
I think if you click on that link I just pasted into the chat, it'll take you to a letter, and then at the bottom of the letter, it says, please register here to receive hike details. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, I got it, Nancy. There we go. So that's how you can register for the hike. Okay, thank you very much. And nice to meet lots of you via Zoom, and I hope to meet you in person on Sunday, the 29th. Have a
All
good
right.
night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay,
So if you want to go on that and you want that link, click it quick before we end the meeting. Because once the meeting is ended, I don't think you'll be able to get that. So
You can save the chat. In fact, I think probably,
I can, but that won't do people who want, I mean, then I have to figure out a way to get it to all these other people.
okay.
You know, right now it's out there in public for anybody who wants to click on that link and find out how to sign up for the hike. And once this meeting's over, it's going to be a little harder to find that information.
Just go to the dkycnps.org website and go to the activities.
There you
page.
go. There you go.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Cynthia. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. It was something very new to me and something very different. A great resource. I'm going to go now and look up and see if I can figure out where I can find some common juniper to make Scandinavian homebrew with. So there you go.
Ooh, that's going to be a tough one. No, I don't know any juniper locations close by.
Well, you can three.
I think I'm going to have to do a little driving to find it.
Right.
But I specifically need juniperus communis because there's too many different kinds of juniper and some of them can't be trusted.
Aha. Well,
All right,
good luck
thanks,
on your
everybody.
Wildcrafting.
Yep.
Yeah. Very good. Nice to see you all. Good night.